back to another episode with Career Kickstart Conversations. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I'm joined by a really great guest, Javier. I'll pass it over for a quick introduction, and then we'll get started.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Javier Tirado-Montero. I have 10 years of talent acquisition experience at multiple companies such as Apple, Cisco, and Lenovo, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Yes, thanks for coming on. And today we're talking about handling multiple job offers. So just jump right into it. What's the first thing someone should do when they have two job offers? What are the first maybe like three things they should look at or do?
That's a great question. I think the first thing, right, you want to tell your recruiter right away, right? We want to have all the information that we know up front, because this is where recruiters out there that you could really make a difference in a candidate's journey, right? And how you treat them moving forward from a multiple offer situation will really indicate where the candidate's going to go, right? And so that's the first thing. And then internally, as a candidate, you want to make sure you're taking an inventory on what's most important to you, right? For me personally, and having been gone through this experience on the candidate side and the recruiter side, what's important to me is, can I be my authentic self at work, right? This trumps salary and benefits, right? And the way I navigate that is having a relationship with the manager, having pointed questions on how long am I going to be under this person? Is there ERGs I can engage with? And asking different aspects of the culture, right? So take a personal inventory on what's most important to you. And then the last thing, is thinking about your timeline, right? When do you need to respond back by? And also, when you need to make that decision ultimately to let go of some offers that are maybe not in your top 10 priority list, right?
Yeah.
I think that's also important as well.
Absolutely. And what do you think? So you have an offer, maybe you might already have another one, but this one that you really liked came in. Do you think you should accept on the spot, or do you always recommend you should ask for more time to evaluate?
Yeah, I'd say there's nothing wrong with asking for more time, right? I think what I personally, and I think every recruiter could relate to this, is accepting it on the spot and then reneging later. Never, ever do that. I have reneged on one offer in my entire life, right? It was an intern offer when I was in college. I accepted it on site for Macy's. I was going to be a buying intern in New York City, right?
Okay.
And then late in the game, that's when Cisco came around and gave me my first internship offer as well, or actually my second. And so I had to go back. And when I tell you it's like breaking up with someone, it's the worst feeling, because then they're like, well, could we have done something different? And I'm like, no, it's not you, it's me. I'm the one that has the issue. And they're like, well, where are you going?
Yeah.
What's the company name? Is it another retailer? And I'm like, it's not a retailer. It's a totally different industry, totally different job. And so I always advocate to never renege on that and to really think about that. I had a couple of friends of mine that were going through something similar, where they accepted a job, but then were playing with this other offer that never panned out. But nobody on the recruiting side, the manager side, wants to bring in an employee, onboard them for a month, and then restart the whole process. So I would definitely not. At the most, I would ask for more time, explain your situation, and then also explain what you're looking for in the offer as well to help sweeten the deal. I think I went through this myself as a candidate. I asked, can I speak to the manager more? Can I meet with someone in an ERG? Because I want to get to know more of the company, right? And if they're really invested in you, I think it's a really simple ask. I think the recruiter could totally make that happen. And 9 times out of 10, you'll get a yes on that.
Absolutely. And it kind of brings me to, so say you have an offer you were given. Sometimes, obviously it's not ideal for a recruiter to do this, but they're pushing on the phone, they're really excited, but do you accept, are you going to accept this offer? And it can feel really uncomfortable to be like, oh, I need more time, or I want to talk to my partner. Or how would you say to professionally handle that on the spot?
It reminds me of when I had an offer. I was at Disney World celebrating my birthday, right? And I had an offer come in, and they were pressuring me like, oh, well, we need an answer within 2 days. And I'm like, well, I'm on vacation for a week with my family. And I just need the time to reprioritize what is important to me. I think the key thing to ask for more time is obviously what the ultimate ask is. But what you want to phrase it as is, I need more time. But while I take the time, can you answer these questions for me, right? Because
Okay.
then it gives the onus back on them to get you a response to that question, right?
Yeah.
And it could be about the offer, it could be about, meeting with a manager or something. That way you buy yourself a little bit more time without seeming so, rude or,
Sure.
or indecisive, right? It's
Yeah.
like I'm still vetting you as much as you're still pursuing me.
Speaking on timing, so you just received an offer from a company, you have some time to think about it. You're in other interviews. Like, what's the proper way to go about that with other companies you're speaking with?
That's a great question. So in this same example,
Yeah.
right? Have an offer. It's my birthday. I'm on Pirates of the Caribbean, right? You have to ultimately make the decision for yourself. I went back to company B and I said, hey, I need more time, or can you make a decision now, right? Because I have an offer on the table. And they're like, well, we can't. You're kind of in mid-process. You still got maybe 1 or 2 more interviews to go. At that point, I remember after I got home from Magic Kingdom, I actually reached out to my couple mentors. And I'm like, this is the situation, right? Company A is okay, but I really want company B. And they're like, you have to make a choice, right? And if company A is not willing to wait, then you have to make that choice of, is this important to you? And look back at the, your offer matrix, see what's important to you, are the values aligning, and then make a risk, right? And so in that situation, I declined and I said, hey, you can't give me more time, then here's your answer.
Yeah.
It's going to be a no. And I'm going to try to pursue company B.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people are respectful of that. And also, when you say no, here's why, right? And I pointed out a couple things within the offer that I didn't think were strong, like 401k or paid holidays, right? And then they understood that and they're like, okay, got it, and thank you, So it's not always about timeline, it's other factors that weighed into it as well.
Absolutely. I'm going to stick to timing just for another question, but you have an offer, you're excited about it, but there's another company, you're kind of getting towards finals. But they really don't have a timeline of when an offer might be coming. How long do you hold out and wait for this potential offer versus going with the other offer you have?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Because I think that's something, people struggle with is, do I take what I have? Because like you said, you don't want to accept and then...
Right, Renee,
Yeah.
Bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush, right? I wouldn't wait more than a week, honestly. If you are that close to being a finalist for... company B in this scenario, you should be able to have an indication on where the wind is blowing, right? I actually had this situation come up, between my current role at Lenovo and I had another role at Meta at the time. And I kind of pushed on that, right?
Yeah.
And they couldn't give me an answer, but the recruiter is like, oh, we're really going to find you some time and we need to think about it. They're like, you're getting the offer.
Yeah.
We're just stuck in our processes, right? Which also, by the way, recruiters, like, you have to look at your process as well. As is it getting in the way of great talent, right? But they did their best to try to mention that I think you're going to get the offer, right?
Okay.
And then that gave me enough time to think about it, right? And make decisions from there,
Yeah.
If you're going after, obviously, really great talent.
Yeah.
If you have multiple people in process, then as a recruiter, you should be honest. It's like, hey, you're one of 3 or one of 2.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, and we still need that last interview, and so it's hard to gauge, right? And then you have to think about too, do you want A or B?
Yeah.
What is the most important role to you?
Absolutely. Do you think it's appropriate to leverage an offer with another company you're interviewing? And if so, like, when is a good time to do that?
I think at offer stage for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great conversation when you first hear from the recruiter. It's like, hey, I'm excited to present you this offer. And you're like, thank you for the offer. I also have another competing offer. And here's some things that I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah.
And then you start going into the differences, right? I have, when I went through this, I had a matrix of ABC. It's a full spreadsheet. And I went through the whole package.
Yeah.
I went through salary, stock, relocation if it was applicable.
Okay.
How many paid holidays do you have? What is your HSA policy? What is health insurance? What is paternity and maternity leave? What are the things that are going to be important to me in the next 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And when you break it down like that, you'll start to see some differences, some nuances between, that could really shake things up onto what's important. And then, as a negotiator, everything's on the table, or at least everything should be, right? If you have a trip that's planned and say, hey, I have something that's coming up, can I get some paid time off already included, or keep that in mind, or can I move my start date, or etc. Right?
Yeah. So speaking on negotiating, what would you say are 3 do's and don'ts when it comes to negotiating multiple offers?
Oh man, that's a good question. 3 do's I would say is know your number.
Okay.
The salary is going to always dictate a lot of things, right? And have it based in facts and data, right? Take the average, right? And you could do some market research as well with Glassdoor, etc., right? Just so you have an idea of what you're after, right? Number 2 of do's is think about what is important to you in the meantime, right? Like, for example, if I'm going to be in the candidate offer stage, right? For me, right, I just got engaged last year.
Yeah.
So a nice sign-on bonus wouldn't be great to, for a wedding, right? That's coming up. So that's something that might, sway me one way or another.
Yeah.
So thinking about what is important to you, right? And then the third thing I would say is asking about long-term growth, asking about your manager, right? One thing as a pet peeve of mine is you take on a job, the manager switches, right?
Yeah.
The person I thought was interviewing and building this relationship with is no longer my manager. So 3 don'ts though. Oh gosh. Oh man. I think when you're just so unsure of what you want, right? What is important to you? Because that just creates disorganization, right? I had a candidate that I was giving an offer to, right? That wanted more time, and I granted them more time. And they came back crying on the phone with me. And I'm like, what's wrong? And they said, oh my gosh, this is so hard for me because I really want this job, but there's another job in Texas that I really want. And my boyfriend's here and I don't want to leave him, but I want to go to Texas. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm playing. Now I'm the therapist. I'm the dating advice person. And, and I was the person, mind you, that left my job at Apple to pursue my fiance. So I get it.
Yeah.
But they were just so unsure. And at the end of the day, they ended up taking a job in Texas.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, I guess, you and your partner didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then a month later, they called me back like, can I have the job? I changed my mind.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh my gosh, now you changed your mind, right?
Yeah.
So I think just having that's a don't is being completely unsure. Not being rooted in numbers when it comes to your salary offer.
Okay.
And your sign on, right? And then also just and the last thing is just not disclosing your other offers or kind of what is ultimately important to you. Don't play coy with us, right? Like, be transparent, because as a recruiter, I want to advocate for you to the manager on what is important to you. And if you're like not honest with your deal breakers, then I can't advocate for you.
Okay. Kind of brings me to my next one. So say, you're a candidate and you're like, oh, I have this great idea. I might lie and say I have, another offer. What can happen if someone does that or misrepresents an offer or lies about it? And can usually like a recruiter tell?
We can tell.
Yeah.
Because we'll ask pointed questions, right? Because if I'm a recruiter, right, and I've had this happen, so who's it with? What's important to you, right? How much is it? Is it salary? Let's just start there. Is it long-term growth? Is it mentorship? Like, what is driving your decision, right? And if you can't answer these questions, or if you're vague, right, you're like, okay, then I don't know if it's real. The second thing that could happen is it could blow up in your face, where I'm like, oh, well, you're candidate 2. I'm just going to go with candidate 1. So, good luck. Right?
Yeah.
And you're like, wait. Then you have to think about like, oh, well, that didn't quite work out. And, is this open? Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get the logic behind it.
Sure.
Of you want to have more leverage and look more sought after.
Yeah.
But if that was already the case and you already had something, right? And especially in this market, we look at market research, what's the average number of offers that a candidate has? Is it a candidate market? Is it a company market, right?
Yeah.
So we already know this going in. So yeah, I personally wouldn't lie to try to gain some leverage here. I know some people might say during the interview process, you could say, hey, I'm interviewing with other companies. That's fine, I think. If you want to, say, hey, I'm looking around. It's not just you. It's like, okay. But when you're at an offer stage, that's where all the cards need to be on the table, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the distinction there. Interview phase, sure.
Yeah.
Offer stage, no.
Okay. No. And so maybe that's not a good idea, but you have two, 3 offers. You like them all. You can't really decide.
Yeah.
What aspects can you negotiate, or do you recommend negotiating?
Ooh, if all things are equal, right? 3 offers, right? You have to ask yourself what's important. If let's just say in this scenario, they're all same salary, same stock, right? Then it really comes down to the type of work that you want to do, right? It's about long-term growth. It's about building relationships with that manager, right? It's about feeling like you could bring your authentic self, right? One great example of this, right? All things are equal. When I had 2 job offers at one point. I was between Lenovo and my current role as a North America University recruiting manager. And then it was at Meta. It was a sourcing role, right? And from a salary perspective, they're very comparable.
Okay.
But to me, what was important is I wanted to be a manager and leverage that experience. And that is something that's intangible, right? In this scenario. So thinking about what is going to get you to the next step in your career, right? That you don't already have, I think is important. And then also who you're going to work for. Who you work for is so important. And that's why you want to spend the time, like even in the other example with the company at Disneyland that pursued me, I asked for time with the manager and I said, I want to get to know them more, even though we're on vacation. And so I think that's important. Even at my this offer too, before I accepted it, I said I wanted to meet with my manager and a skip level. And they took me out to dinner and, we got to really know each other. So those are the little things that you can always negotiate and vet out when you're really undecided, for sure.
So given what you said for that example, would you say that you recommend that for someone to feel, comfortable moving forward with an offer? Or is there anything else that you would recommend for someone to feel like really good about accepting an offer over another one?
That's a good one. You want to be, at the end of the day, like trustworthy of your gut, right? Of like, I made the right decision here. And I think looking at the company's values, you also want to ask yourself, do you want to work for a North America-based company, or if it's an international company, right? That's something to think about, differences in culture. Is the roles global versus, geo or within geography? But at the end of the day, you can go back and like say like, oh, well, what if I took this? What if I took that?
The
right?
what ifs.
The what ifs, right? But ultimately, like you make that decision, and you walk away thinking, I think I made the right with all things, and that's why I have a matrix, right?
Yeah.
To look at what's important, right? And I start dotting pros and cons, right? And then of course you talk to your significant others, your friends, family, but ultimately you have to make that decision. But that doesn't mean that you just completely ghost the other offers. There's a way that you can keep the door open and circle back with them later.
Yeah. And do you think there are like certain signs that can lead to maybe one offer might be safer, but not the better option for you? And maybe you're leaning towards the safer option because it feels safe?
That's a great question. You know what? Funny enough, yes. This is something I tell students a lot in university recruiting is one thing you want to look at is the company growing? Are they making money? And because I think about this a lot, actually, because when I graduated in 2015.
Yeah.
And one of the great companies that not everyone, but a good amount of people sought after was Toys R Us. Right.
Yeah.
And at the time, we love Toys R Us. It's 2015, we still love toys, right? We go there to be kids, right?
Yeah.
And then, 3-4 years later, look what happens.
Yeah.
Right. You want to look at the company strategy, year-over-year revenue, right? And what environment you're joining in. And that can actually tell you a lot about where you want to end up, if all things are equal, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I'll kind of jump down to the end. So you've accepted an offer. You had a couple offers that you declined.
Yeah.
What's the best way to professionally decline them?
That's a great question. It's like breaking up with someone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I would say you reach out to the recruiter, the manager too, if you have the email, and say, thank you so much for the offer. This was a very difficult decision, but I'm going to decide to decline at this time. And the immediate question from a recruiter is like, why? Right?
Yeah.
As any breakup is. Like, why? Why are you breaking up with me? And you can state your reasons, right? I did this, as I said before, 401k, for example, is important to me, and some 401ks aren't as competitive. Culture is important to me, who I'm reporting to. I even remember one time I did an interview where I told the manager, I don't think this is the job for me. And I still ended up with the offer. And so, you think about like, well, I told you.
Yeah.
But I think stating a reason and being very just truthful with your reasoning, right?
Yeah.
Just so that they can improve, because we take these internally and go back like, hey, compensation team, we need to up our comp.
Yeah.
Or hey, manager, maybe you need to present the role this way. Or maybe you need to up the salary. Or maybe we offer relocation. Maybe we think about candidates outside, right? Our geo or our state. So any feedback I think is appropriate. And then also you end it with, I hope we can connect paths again soon.
Yeah.
I think that keeps the door open. And you never know when you might circle back with them. Because I've had this happen to me where I had a company pursue me and I said no, not at the time, right? But 4 or 5 years later, go back looking for a search, right? Looking at new companies, and look, I go back to that LinkedIn message from 4 years ago, and the recruiter's still there, and they went and advocated for me, and so it makes a difference on both sides, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really important to keep the door open. Do you think so? After you have professionally declined an offer and you are keeping that door open, is that enough? Like you were professional with it. Should you maintain contact throughout the year at all?
Oh, absolutely. I personally have a Rolodex. I know it's a old term for some people, but of all the recruiters that I've ever messaged with me, or I've engaged in a process with, and even still managers that I've worked for right throughout the years, and I send them my Christmas card. I send them a message once a year just to maintain relationships. Use those opportunities as an excuse to reconnect with some folks, because you never know. And I think it's fair. If you had a great experience as a recruiter with a candidate, you'll want to hear back from them anyway.
Yeah.
And as on the candidate side, you want to maintain that relationship with that recruiter, because you might find another job and it might not be that recruiter that is on it, but they know someone who is.
Yeah.
And then that's how you stand out in the process. Recruiters are a part of the networking process you do in this job search, especially in this market. So leverage them as much as you can, for sure.
Absolutely. I know we touched a little bit on accepting an offer and backing out.
Oh, yeah.
But on the last piece of like professionalism, so you accepted the offer, you did back out after. Like, what are the risks of doing that long term?
The risks of reneging, right? Recruiters talk. We have relationships, right? Managers talk, right?
Yeah.
I personally, when I did it, right, it was completely different industries.
Yeah.
So not to say that gives you an excuse to do it, but that is a good example of when is maybe you can get away with it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that within industry, then that might follow you, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on where you were sourced, right? I had a candidate one time that I gave an offer to, they accepted. Great, so excited. And it was from a conference. I don't know if you're familiar with Out for Undergrad. I love Out for Undergrad, right? It focuses on LGBTQ high potential talent, right? the candidate ended up reneging and going to another company. And I asked why, and it's, essentially they wanted to be a manager, right? They have that management title, right? Which then in of itself is a whole different topic. But I told the candidate, I'm like, this is going to reflect on you, but also out for undergrad where you came from, right? Where we met. And I got in touch with the folks at Out for Undergrad, and I said, I hate to say this, but this is what happened. And, and they had a conversation afterwards. So whatever that relationship that they might have, maybe they don't come back, or maybe they don't get as involved with that anymore. Because as a sponsor, or as a, if I'm O for you, I want to be the best representation through my students, right?
Yeah.
And, if that's what happened, it's, you look at that person, it's like, okay, well, maybe they don't, come back as a mentor, or as involved, right? Because you want to have the best representation of your brand, of the students. So, and so those are some of the risks that come with it, right? We talk to people. And so if you're going to do it, though, be sure in your gut that this is the move for you.
Yeah.
And because you want to make sure that you don't look back, because it might come back to haunt you.
Yeah. I mean, that hiring manager might be at the next company you're interviewing for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I left Apple, it was a tough decision.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there for very long, but I made sure that was a decision I wanted to make. I took a chance on love.
Yeah.
With my then boyfriend, now fiance. And so, I made sure I was happy with that.
Yeah.
And I don't look back. I don't regret it.
Yeah.
And so those decisions you have to really stand firmly on, for sure, and think about what's important, And for me at that time was my personal happiness.
Yeah.
And pursuing,
Absolutely.
Love.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of wrap it up.
Yeah.
So right now there's a candidate listening to this. They have 2 offers in front of them. Like, what's your first piece of advice for them?
Oh, man. First piece of advice is, what is important to you, right? Write it down, set it in stone. That's what scripture says, right? What is the single most important factor to you? And I can tell you mine, right? It is, can I be myself at work? I'm a loud personality. I have green hair. I like to, be myself, right? And work with people. And I think that's one of my superpowers. So can you operate in that way is important. And the second thing is, think about what the long-term growth is, right?
Yeah.
For you and your career. And is this company going to be around 3 to 5 years, right? 10 years, however long you anticipate being there, right? Think about that aspect. And then the last thing is, ultimately, is that where you'll find your happiness? Is that where you're going to find your next mentor, your sponsor, who you're going to work for, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to only gravitate to those that will put you on a pedestal and invest in you, and you want to feel invested in, right? And that could be felt through the recruitment process, because, and sometimes we forget this, is candidates are interviewing companies just as much as we are interviewing the candidates.
If not sometimes more. Yeah.
Right, because you want to make sure that you feel as though that you're invested in, and the process feels comfortable to you, right? And that they're listening, right, to what is important to you. So those are the things I would really take to heart when you're thinking about deciding your next offer. And then, once you sign that offer letter, just raise up a glass, relax, and feel comfortable in the decision that you made.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you say about like the happiness, the comfortability, because I think people can get really caught up on, this is a great offer because of the money.
Right.
And then a couple months in, the other things are really lacking, and now you're back to being super unhappy.
It is so true, because a company name is not everything.
No.
Right. For myself, these big names are a dream, right?
Sure.
But it's not always, what it is meant to be, right? There's a lot of value in, smaller startups or mid-sized companies, right? And so thinking about what makes you happy, who you want to work for, and what environment you want to work for, says all the difference in the world, right? And so sometimes people really, especially your early talent, I'll say, is they're chasing the fangs or whatever the acronym is now. They want the big names, the big labels, right? And, it comes with some prestige because as recruiters, we think about like, what do we call it? Window shopping, where we're just looking at resumes and looking for the big names. Right? But when it comes to an offer stage though, is that important to you? Is it that important? Because I've met people who they make that their whole personality. It's like, I work at X company, right?
Yes.
And that's just not me. I think you want to, be holistic in your approach, and think about your day to day, think about your long term, and think about who you want to work for ultimately and what style works best for you. I've been in organizations that have been very autonomous, but also very lean. I've been in organizations that's been very structured and almost autocratic, right?
Yeah.
I've been in places that, on roles where it's a little bit of both, So everyone has its pros and cons, right? It's not going to be for everybody. And so you're going to find what culture fits right for you, I have, 3 big companies, right? Apple, Cisco, Lenovo, but each one of them is a very distinct culture, right? And so with that experience comes the wisdom of knowing what works best for me and what I want to step into environment-wise when it comes to a job offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again. For coming on, sharing your insights. And if anybody has any questions, comments, stories they want to share, just drop them below.